Me with them 9 times out of 10 I bang them. All we do is fuck, but she say we don't do it enough. Calling my phone, going ham down, Pam, you be doing too much. All on my Instagram trying to spaz out, you be doing too much. On a screenshot while we FaceTime, you be doing too much. Got me on speakerphone around your friends, ho, you really doing too much. All in my shows, pulling on my clothes, ho, you really doing too much. Bitch thought she had a blessing, whole lie like she dreaming. To tell the truth, she was missing. Screenshot 9 missions. I ain't gon' lie, I hit a couple times, I really was thirsty though. She was just one of them hits you hit for in the morning like come to the go. Crystal in her eyes while she drive, she coming straight to me. She put the ratchet pussy head on the nigga going straight to me. I tried to tell her before this shit unfolded, I can't help fucking my dream, my name. We started off cool and shit changed. I guess they good did and fucked up a brain. Hold a little bitch, you tripping out. Got a bitch at the house, you know my spouse. With that or that, I start fucking with you. Had to cut you off like 60 cut you. I ain't gon' lie, your location was clutch, but you was doing too much. Put your friends on what we got going on, bitch, keep that on the hush. I got a thing for bitches. I don't really hang with bitches. But if you see me with 9 times out of 10 I bang them. All we do is fuck, but she say we don't do it enough. Calling my phone, going ham down, Pam, you be doing too much. All on my Instagram trying to spaz out, you be doing too much. On a screenshot while we FaceTime, you be doing too much. Got me on speakerphone around your friends, ho, you really doing too much. All in my shows, pulling on my clothes, ho, you really doing too much. I fell in love with Keisha, what else? I had a thing for some money. That hoe was asking too much. She made it hard. I had a menage for two girls. Had a garage reef. When you get money and everybody begging that shit, how you dodging? I used to be robbing. These bitches be charging people. I had a little bitch at the mall so bad I went to a job. I still be lying to me. These niggas be crying to bitches. These niggas be doing too much. These bitches be trying to mess. These niggas be stressing me. Hoes be messing, but I don't be giving them. I don't wanna talk to you. Don't wanna kick you. Give you a band of she caught me slipping. She took a picture of me saying this and that shit to her friends. Who text? He fell asleep in that pussy again. He fell asleep in that pussy. Got a thing for bitches. I don't really hang with her. But if you see me with 9 times out of 10 I bang them. All we do is fuck, but she say we don't do it enough. Calling my phone, going ham down, Pam, you be doing too much. All on my Instagram trying to spaz out, you be doing too much. On a screenshot while we FaceTime, you be doing too much. Got me on speakerphone around your friends, ho, you really doing too much. All in my shows, pulling on my clothes, ho, you really doing too much. But you be doing too much. Be doing too much. Be doing too much.
I wanted to make Angry Orchard Rosé out of my love for rosé wine. We came here to France and found these red-fleshed apples. Our rosé is a little bit less sweet. It has a bright, refreshing taste and a pink rosé hue.
Yeah. I'm only chasing after bags, now I got a game plan. I'm only chasing after bags, now I got a game plan. Yeah, I'm out here with me. 901 Shelby Drive, look alive. Came up on this side, now they on the other side. Oh well, fuck them, dawg. We gon' see how hard they ride. I get racks to go outside, and I split it with the guys on the other side. Niggas acting like we tied. I've been gone since like July. Niggas acting like I died. They won't be expecting shit when Kappa go to not the same, man. And I could let you check the tag. Now I'm rocking name brand. I'm only chasing after bags. Got a game plan. And I'm out here with the 700 3R5s. Look alive. Came up on this side. Now they on the other side. Oh well, fuck them, dawg. We gon' see how hard they ride. I get rest to go outside, and I spit it with the guy on the other side. Niggas acting like retired. I've been gone since like July. Niggas acting like I died. They won't be expecting shit when Capo go to slide. Told them that we put that shit behind us, but our bitch come through. You and you, I'ma get the money. Trizzy get the loot. Pull up with that Drake, don't play with Drake, and I'ma shoot. My weapon be an instrument, I blow you like a fruit. Nigga play so he feel it. Pull up all day with the canine shivering. Drop a nigga like he littering. We at your door like we the delivery. He not a plug, he middleman. That nigga brown like cinnamon. I got the round like sugar Ray Robinson. Shots to the chest, how you got you for alcohol. Spray him, just like for a breeze. Come a long way from sitting in the nose. Now nigga on the floor talking to the athlete. I'm so close to the gun that I can steal the stash sheet. 901 Chevy Drive, look alive. Came up on this side, now they on the other side. Oh well, fuck them, dawg. We gon' see how hard they ride. I get rest to go outside, and I spit it with the guy on the other side. Niggas acting like retired. I've been gone since like July. Niggas acting like I died. They won't be expecting shit when Capo go to slide. Told them that we put that shit behind us, but I love.
What's up, everyone? I'm Helena Almu, and welcome to another episode of the DNA Download, where we explain the science of genetics so you can live in the know. It's an age-old question. Was I born this way? In other words, am I the way that I am because of my DNA or because of my lifestyle and my environment? Is it nature or nurture? Here to help answer this question is Dr. Ruth Tennant, who works on the product science team at 23andMe. Thanks for being here, Ruth.
Thanks for having me.
So, Ruth, how much of who I am comes from my DNA, and how much is due to things I've experienced and been exposed to in my life?
Well, it kind of depends on which aspect of you we're talking about. So some traits, like your blood type, are determined entirely by genetics. Others, like whether you like the taste of broccoli, are influenced by both genetics and your experiences.
Oh, so you're saying there's a range in terms of how much genetics influences different traits.
Exactly. So imagine putting your traits along a spectrum, with traits that are strongly influenced by genetics on one side, that's the nature side, and traits that are strongly influenced by environment on the other side, the nurture side. That spectrum represents a concept that scientists call heritability.
Heritability. Whew, quick, say that 5 times fast. So, is it called heritability because you inherit genes from your parents?
Exactly, yep. So for each trait, heritability is basically just a way of describing how big a role genetics plays in explaining the differences between people. Now, one really important detail is that heritability applies to populations rather than to individual people. So it can't tell you exactly how big a role genetics plays in determining your individual traits. But it's still a useful jumping off point to help us understand how genetics and environment shape who we are.
Got it. So what are some traits that would fall on the nature side of that spectrum, where genetics plays a big role?
So there are actually some diseases where genetics is pretty much the whole story. So let's use sickle cell anemia as an example. Sickle cell anemia is a disease that affects our red blood cells, and it's caused by a single DNA variant. In order to have sickle cell anemia, a person has to inherit 2 copies of that variant, one from mom and one from dad.
So So you're saying that whether someone has sickle cell anemia is determined entirely by their DNA?
Exactly. But most traits and diseases don't have such a strong genetic component. Instead, they're influenced by lifestyle and environment, too.
Interesting. So I try to eat well and live a healthy lifestyle, although I may indulge in a donut or two.
I am also a huge donut fan. But yeah, lifestyle factors like diet and exercise can make a big difference in our health, even for diseases that are influenced by genetics. So let's take type 2 diabetes. Scientists have identified hundreds of DNA variants associated with type 2 diabetes, but we also know that regardless of our genetics, we can reduce our risk for type 2 diabetes by eating healthy and working out.
So what about traits, like height, for example? I would love to be 2 inches taller. Who do I talk to about that?
Well, unfortunately, I can't help you there, but I can say that height is influenced by both genetics and environment, a combination of kind of nature and nurture. So, for example, when I was born, my mom, who's 5 feet tall, my dad, who's 5'6", they were pretty sure I wasn't going to be the tallest kid in the class.
And that's because genetics plays a big role in determining how tall we are, right?
Exactly. But even though height is influenced strongly by genetics, things like nutrition can also play a role. So, for example, if there's a child who is genetically inclined to be tall, but she doesn't get enough healthy food to eat when she's young, she may end up being shorter than she otherwise would be.
Wow.
And that idea that both genetics and lifestyle and environment are important in shaping who we are and in explaining differences between people is actually true for a whole ton of other traits too, from our personalities to whether we're nearsighted to whether we experience motion sickness.
So, when we think about what makes us who we are, whether it's nature or nurture, the answer is usually that it's both.
Exactly. Genetics plays a role, but it usually isn't the whole story.
Well, that wraps up another episode. Thanks again for being here, Ruth, and we'll see you next time on the DNA Download.
Cruising Biscayne, hit for top of God. That's a liability. Hit the gas, yeah. Boosted my adrenaline, big fun. Percocet, yeah. Molly Percocet, big fun. Percocet, yeah. Molly Percocet, big fun. Represent, yeah. Gotta represent, yeah. Chase a chick, yeah. Never chase a bitch, big fun. Mask on, yeah. Fuck your mask off, big fun. Mask off, yeah. Fuck your mask off, big fun.
Are we gonna go mountain biking?
Yes, we are, darling. We are. You enjoying this, though? Is it fun? You hear that over the sea? Wow, look at this. Who's that one? Have you named them?
We have them.
Cut up some of your... Are you alright eating it off that?
You have the plate?
Look at them cupcakes right there. Look at them cupcakes right there. I'm just saying, this is what we do at Cupcake Heavens. Hey, chocolate by death. Ooh, that's what we do. Look at them right there. I'm just